then it was a situation where we knew we could get it in early this morning. So fire away. I'm ready for questions.
Round two with your buddy Coach Tang in collegiate. How you feeling about that?
Yeah, I'm glad we get to play here and excited about the opportunity. It'll likely be a really good crowd. I anticipate really good crowd. Kevin Saul told us that the numbers should be really good. So we'll see what it's like. But they have a good basketball team. We're in for a heck of a fight on Saturday, but one we're up for.
This series, I know that it went back to, Weber versus Isaac Brown and everything. Was it kind of existing when you walked in the door? Is this still the same series, or is this you and Coach Tang kind of getting
No, it's the same series. So this is the last of a 4-year series. So it closes out here. Jerome was at my house for about 4 hours in July, and we were visiting about a number of things. And as he was leaving, I said, "Hey, we're going to renew this series, right?" And he said, "Well, let's talk about it later." So we'll see how this plays out. I leave that to smarter people than me, Kevin, and let their athletic director kind of hash this out. But it is a good series, and hate to see it coming to an end, but we'll see what materializes after this.
You get the sense of like how big this is to bring K-State to, they played them at downtown, but to bring them to Koch Arena, like how big of a deal is it to bring, an in-state, rival to Koch Arena?
Do you know when the last time was?
I think it was 01.
2001. So that's pretty cool. 24 years since it's happened the last time, and I can't tell you how many times. I need to preface this by saying I'm already a bad driver, and I don't do well growing up in Houston. You just drove quickly everywhere and to avoid traffic, and so I consider speed limit suggestions. And I will tell you that people in Wichita are very obedient. If it says 40, it's my experience, people go 40. But I can tell you that if I see a Kansas or a K-State license plate, I deliberately pass them just to say I'm in first. So saw one coming in today, said I'm getting around this person, and rarely have they ever tried to speed up and tried to keep up with me. But it's I've seen enough Wildcat license plates around the city of Wichita to know that they have a good fan base and they'll show up.
You kind of mentioned the crowd for Saturday. I know last year, even though it was a neutral site, it kind of seemed like a K-State home game. So I guess just talk a little bit about how important it is. Crowd size could be 50-50. It could go Chalker's way, but just how important is that?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely important to be able to play one, sleep in your own bed, and then I think that's a big deal, and then two, just being able to play in front of your fans. I could get into a long diatribe about my thoughts on Tuesday night. So if one of you prompt me, I'll curtail it a little bit. But I will tell you that it is a situation where we need a home game right now, and we need it in front of our fans, and we need a caliber opponent. So anxious to get started.
How big of a deal is it for, in-state battles and everything? Obviously in Texas there's a ton of them with all the schools that are down there, but, guys like Xavier, TJ, you saw it, with that Drake team the other day, the amount of Kansas talent. How big of a deal is it when these two schools play each other for that reason?
Yeah, I mean, again, just given the proximity of it all, just how close it is, given that, that there's Jayhawk fan base here in Wichita, there's Wildcat fan base here in Wichita, and to be able to play them in your home arena in front of your own crowd, I know it's probably one of those games when it comes out that your players probably are paying attention to quite a bit, and that's we usually jump into a scouting report 3 days prior to tipping off, so it was. We were off yesterday because NCAA forces us to take a day off. And so we had to review what happened on Tuesday night today and then go over that. But guys were really, it's something you can tell they're looking forward to.
What was your thoughts, after watching it back Tuesday, dissecting it? What's kind of your thoughts after?
Yeah, my biggest thought is I thought we played like an entitled basketball team. Like we just, and to be honest with you, I honestly can't think of a characteristics I dislike more. It's like when your players get a pair of shoes and they're like, ugh, Like, why did they give us C's instead of just saying thank you? You know, there's a way for people who think that they're entitled. They think they deserve something. So their response, whatever it may be, they just think they're owed something more on account of whatever status that they possess. I thought we played entitled basketball. We just thought we were going to win. And we didn't feel that we needed to do the energy and needed to do the things and to make sure that we were following through on the things that we had covered. We just thought, hey, you know, again, even after coming after a loss, you know, being 8-2, play a home game. All right, we're going to bounce back, and that's not the way this works. Like, you have to play you have to compete with joy. You have to compete with the level of gratefulness every time out. Like, I'm thankful for this opportunity, and I'm going to express my gratitude by demonstrating that, and we didn't. And so I just thought we were an entitled basketball team.
You feel like when you lose a game like that, is that kind of the positive? Is that maybe wipes that out of them a little bit?
You would hope so, right? I'm kind of refraining from comment because I thought that our practice the day before was really good, so I thought we would see something different. But that is a positive because pride goes before destruction and an arrogant spirit before a fall. So you know it's a matter of time that people who are entitled, that's going to set in and it's eventually going to reveal itself. So it is good to have a level of humility and to dial that back, but it's also a great opportunity to understand that, man, this is a game that honors toughness. And it's not limited to certain programs, like anybody, any night. And I had a number of coaches who called me after that game and reached out the following morning and just like, Paul, we've all been there. And it's one of those things where you kind of feel it in the moment. And we were up pretty late kind of dissecting it and trying to get an idea of what happened. But the more and more I watched it, I just thought, well, like, we play entitled basketball, so you need those moments to alleviate that stuff and wash and cleanse that stuff as quickly as possible, because that's not something that can continue to progress. You're gonna end up in a downfall.
What did you guys try to do to get that out of them in today's practice, film session, and how did the players respond?
It's a good question. Man, I think you addressed it. I think the biggest thing that you wanted to take away was Peter Drucker had this comment that efficiency is being able to do the right thing. Like, hey, man, you know what? This baseline OB, we're efficient here because we are doing the thing the right way. We ran it right. We executed it right. Whereas when you deal with that level of efficiency or inefficiency, it was obvious that we weren't doing the thing right. But what's more important is to be effective. And in order to be effective, you have to do the right thing. We did not do the right thing. We did not do the right thing until late. And we showed them the clips of the first half and went through it. And, you know, one of the things is just inexcusable. My daughter asked me this the other day, says, what's the worst thing that can happen in the game of basketball? Said an air ball, a turnover, and you can tell, like, that's somebody who doesn't know much. And I said, the worst thing would have to be not communicating. Like, that takes zero level of talent, just not saying anything. You have 4 guys on one page, and then you have that one guy different. That happened way too much. And so we had to charge those guys up at halftime, tell them that it was inexcusable, but we had already dug ourselves a hole. And it's one of those things where you have to address it. You better be able to handle it a lot better than what we did. And again, people lose. I get it if we got beat. And I'm not trying to take away anything from UMKC, but I did tell the players, like, you're going to go talk to the media. We are going to own this. You know, just because things don't go our way, I've seen players try to duck out of taking ownership of what just happened. That's not going to occur. And, you know, I'm aware of FAU losing a quad 4 game at home last year, and I get it. But it's one thing to lose because the other team's better. It's a different thing to lose because you approached it the wrong way. And we approached that game the wrong way. And that's 1,000,000% on Paul Mills.
Is there kind of like entitled basketball, as you mentioned? Is that something that you kind of saw for the first time in that game, or is it something you've been seeing throughout
Yeah, definitely not anything that you've seen a lot. I mean, I tell the players pretty regularly when I say twice a month, 3 times a month, I can't imagine a worse characteristic in a basketball player than being entitled. You see this sometimes McDonald's All Americans or guys with accolades. They just think that when they show up to college, they should be able to play and get a lot of minutes. And because they believe they're entitled based on their past performance, not understanding you're going to have to work for that. And you preach that message constantly throughout the year. You try to preach a message of being grateful and being thankful for the opportunity. And again, players get things now that I mean, a number of players never even thought about being able to get before. And when you don't approach the game grateful and thankful for the opportunity and you just take it for granted and you feel like you're entitled to kind of go out there and do what you want and say your own thing and think the other players know what's going on via osmosis, it's a matter of time. And that's what I thought for 25 minutes of that game that I watched was unfortunately what bad basketball.
What are your first impressions of K-State's roster, and what do you expect to see, especially given the rivalry?
One, they have two really talented bigs. Gesson is really good, and he continues to get better. And then you look at Coleman Hawkins and his ability at his size to really pass, to get downhill. They've got an elite shooter in Brendan Housen and his ability. And then David Castillo is playing well. Doug McDaniel, you have the two Jones, Max Jones, Chris Jones. So they've got perimeter players, they've got size, they've got shooting. Like they've got a component of all. And they're kind of in a similar situation to us. I mean, they went to a Big East school on the road, didn't go well. Ended up playing Drake the other night. Ended up losing in overtime. So somebody's going to break a winning streak. Somebody's going to continue a losing streak. But it is one of those things where they have a really talented basketball team, and you're going to have to be on your A game in order to make sure that we can win a home game here prior to Christmas.
Just as a basketball guy watching film, obviously they've had, some struggles like you've talked about with the talent that they've had. From an outsider's perspective, what do you think it is for them that is causing them to lose these games, and that's something you can take advantage of if you have something?
Yeah, man, I honestly do not know. I would be willing to offer Coach Tang suggestions if I knew something, but it won't be prior to Saturday. I can tell you that. He calls me and says, "What do you think? You think you should do this?" We all end up watching each other's games. Coach Drew, who's the head coach at Baylor, called me right after our game the other night and said, "You should have done A and you should have done B." He said, "I watched the entire second half." And I was like, "You should have watched the first half." That was where the majority of the problems were. So I think we all have suggestions for each other, but I don't have anything to offer him right now other than, show up late to the game or something.
And you mentioned Tuesday, that wasn't up to the standard for the program, for
Yeah.
the fan base. Saturday, like you said, it's going to be, maybe the biggest crowd of your career. Is this a chance to really make an impression, to, really make a difference, with coming off of a bad performance?
I don't really think about that, I mean, you just come in and you go, I needed to go 1-0 today. Like, we need to make sure that we were on point for practice. I told the staff when we met, I said, y'all should have seen me from 2 a.m. to 6 this morning. Like, I was killing it. Like, I was on point, full of energy. Went to bed at 11:30, got up at 2, obviously thinking about this game, but prepping and getting ready for today's practice. So I don't think about. I mean, during the course of the year when you play 32 basketball games, there's going to be good ones, there's going to be bad ones, And this was the first time in a non-conference game that I've experienced a loss here, and it's not fun. But I don't really think about. I don't think about anything other than addressing what needs to get addressed with our basketball team, and that's where my focus is at.
The other night, the 3-point shooting, whatever the number ended up being that you guys got to, do you just chalk that up to a cold night? Is that something you can work on, or what do you do about that?
Yeah, no, those were actually bad shots. I mean, that was the thing. If you talk about a basketball emphasis, some of our shot selection led to that. Yeah, we grade shots A, B, and C. A is a really good one. C is an awful one. B is, you know what, probably not the best shot, but it's not the worst shot either. We took 9 C's, we took 11 B's, and we took 42 A's. So, all that being said, you cannot have 2/3 of your shots being B's and C's. Like the number needs to be closer to 20%, 15%. Problem is we generated 45 points off of 42 A's, and then we generated 0 points off of the B's and 0 points off of the C's. And it's one of those things where it really was just bad shots. It's not, I'm not, again, I knew that we weren't the most skilled team. That's not how we're going to win games, but we're better than 3 for 19. But that comes down to shot selection.
Anything else?
Thank you, guys.